I've got a funny little interview here from Sky News, and the interviewer here attempts to do several gotchas on Zia Yusuf, and Zia Yusuf bats them away incredibly quickly. And at the end, he actually manages to turn it round, where the Sky News interviewer has to basically come out with a statement and apologise if he thinks that anybody out there might think his question was a little bit racist. But Mr. Yusuf here turns it round on him brilliantly and answers all of the current questions that are floating round at the moment. Well, where do we get our human rights from? And, immigration is all fabulous and all good for everybody. And I thought this was very quick-witted, and he kind of turned the tables. And in the end, Mr. Yusuf got the gotcha moment.
The only way to stop this madness, the only way to actually have a border, is to leave the ECHR, derogate from every international treaty that stops deportations from happening, and then not just stop the boats, but deport everyone who is in this country illegally, of which there are many. And to do that, we need a reformed government, and Nigel Farage is our Prime Minister.
OK, you've gone a bit early with the election campaigning there. There's a few years to go yet, and you still currently have 5 MPs. Nevertheless, we've just heard from Denmark and the situation there, which Labour seems to be inspired by, a system that, to your mind, looks like it might work. I'll ask you whether you think it is or not. And they're still in the European Convention on Human Rights. So why is that necessary?
There's a whole host of reasons. One is, sadly, we have judges in this country that take a very different view in terms of interpreting law, and therefore Article 8 in particular of the ECHR. I mean, not only has prevented deportations from happening, Article 8 of the ECHR has prevented, people convicted, foreign nationals convicted of the most depraved and heinous crimes, such as rape of young British women,
from being deported. At the same time, one second, at the same time,
on the grounds, and the grounds by the judge was that they would have a tough time of it back in Afghanistan because they were rapists. That's the sort of outrageous situation legally we have in this country.
At the same time, Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights gives 67 million British people the right to a private family life.
Those rights are preserved. I mean, if you want to get into constitutional law in this country.
No, I don't. But the point is, the ECHR broadly provides protections for everybody.
A court in Strasbourg granted them. A court in Strasbourg does not grant British people their rights. That is a nonsense. Parliament in the UK is sovereign. And yes, of course, human rights are important. But the reality is the rights of foreign nationals, in particular those coming here breaking our laws, are time and again trumping the rights of British citizens, people watching this programme who pay their taxes. We're paying £8 billion of taxpayer money for universal credit for foreign nationals every year. We're paying £4 billion and have done for many years now to accommodate illegal migrants. It's totally unacceptable, and I'm afraid people are sick of it.
Your parents came here in the 1980s. Why did they choose to come to the UK from Sri Lanka?
Well, you should probably speak to my parents about that, but I actually don't think it's particularly relevant. My parents did not come here on a boat across the channel illegally.
No, I didn't say
legally, and they've contributed to this country. And I put it to you. You know what? I actually put it to you. You would not be asking this question. There's actually something fundamentally interesting about you asking me that question, because the insinuation of your question is that there is a limit to how restrictive an immigration policy I can advocate for on the basis that my parents happen to be immigrants. And I'm afraid I think there's something very unreasonable about that line of questioning.
No, I think you're deriving the wrong insinuation. I'm interested to know why they came to Britain. I wonder if it was because it's seen as an empathetic and accommodating place.
Well, my father qualified as a medical doctor and came here. He travelled all around the country. Between them, my parents have given 50 years of service to the NHS. My parents did not come here because they were expecting free taxpayer accommodation, free meals, taxi services around the country, and basically to be able to live a life of leisure, including taxpayer-funded days out at the taxpayer's expense. Those are reasons they did not come here. And again, The reality is, in the early 1980s, in fact, for decades, this country did indeed have one of the most successful immigration programs in the world. I would argue my parents are a shining example of that. I'm really proud of them. But what we've seen now is a population explosion. We've seen untrammeled illegal immigration. And if you can't tell the difference between people like my parents coming here in the early 1980s, when net immigration was between 30 and 50,000 a year, and legal migration at around 1 million a year, which is what it was 18 months ago, for example, and hundreds of thousands of people coming here illegally and being put up at the taxpayers' expense. I think British people see a fundamental difference between those things.
I absolutely can tell the difference, of course. And just to be clear, there was no prejudice in me asking you that question. I'm interested to know what their experience was and what they thought of the UK, which made them want to come to the UK. Just to be clear, there was nothing else insinuated by that.
I'll take you at your word on that.
Good, because that's where it comes from.
British people have existed for literally thousands of years before the European Court in Strasbourg ever existed. And we've had our human rights in this country forever and a day, and we certainly don't need a court in Strasbourg to give us our human rights. And isn't it funny when he tries to have these little put-downs like, oh, well, you're not going to be elected yet, and you've only got 5 MPs attempting to annoy him. But again, time and time again, these questions from interviewers do get battered back by Zia Yusuf. He's a credit to reform in many ways. But, trying to use that card at the end and say, oh, well, why did your parents come here and all of that, to which was battered back, and then the apology. I thought that was priceless at the end. Well, I wasn't being racist there. Well, actually, you were by your own standards. The Sky News interviewer was being racist because he was suggesting that Zia Yusuf shouldn't really have a point in this immigration debate because he's an immigrant. And of course, what about multiculturalism? Surely with multiculturalism, it means everyone has a say. But no, Zia Yusuf isn't allowed to have a say because he's a first-generation immigrant. And of course, then the argument gets turned on its head. And I just think it's quite funny that all of these arguments are being exposed at the moment. But most of all, that these arguments are completely now out of date. They've lost all relevance, and we are coming towards a point now where, everything's out the bag, and so it should be. And a brilliant interview there from Zia Yusuf, I thought. Thanks very much for your time.